Good evening, everyone. We're going to call the meeting to order. We'll begin with our land acknowledgement statement. We acknowledge that the ground on which we live is the traditional territory of Caldwell First Nation, of the Three Fires Confederacy, and the original people of Point Pelee and Pelee Island, and its surrounding lands and waters, and that of the Huron-Wendat and Wyandot peoples. We recognize and respect the First Nations who are stewards of the land and waters of Turtle Island, and who have embraced this stewardship since time immemorial. We would also like to acknowledge contributions of other nearby First Nation communities and all original people across Turtle Island. We'll now have a moment of silent reflection, followed by the playing of our national anthem. Please stand for the playing of the national anthem. All right, we'll begin with the adoption of our agenda for the April 8th, 2025 regular council meeting, moved by Councilor Riccio Spagnola. Wow, that didn't come out very well. And support by Councilor Carrick. All in favor? And that carries. Any disclosures of kindreds? None? Adoption of our minutes from the regular meeting of council and the closed meeting of council held March 25th, 2025 be adopted as presented. Moved by Councilor Burns. Support. Deputy Mayor Akpata, all in favor, and that carries. Just a few comments for this evening. The Town of LaSalle website refresh will be launching mid-April, and you'll notice a new look and, in some instances, a new layout of information. We hope you find it helpful and easy to navigate. The LaSalle Senior Active Living Program is underway and has been extremely well attended. The weekly learning activities range from learning and playing cards, to painting, to swimming, and wellness. Join in the weekly pole walking sessions to take in the LaSalle trails, or we have new sessions coming soon, which will include coffee with a community member. The activities are open to those 55 plus. Pre-registration opens 2 weeks before each session, so don't miss out and register early. All the information is shared on our social media pages at the Vollmer Center and on LaSalle Active Registration Portal, and a new webpage, obviously. Like I said, is coming soon, so that information will be there. Clean Up LaSalle, the next regular meeting of council will be held on Earth Day, which is April 22nd. And in honor of this day, we encourage the community to clean a park or trail. So gather a group and visit the Clean Up LaSalle page on our website. And the town provides gloves, garbage bags for those who register for the cleanup. And tag the town on social media, and we will make sure to share your pics. Easter weekend hours is fast approaching, so town hall's closed Good Friday and Easter Monday, which is April 18th and 20th, and the same goes for the Vollmer Center being closed on Good Friday and Easter Sunday instead of the Monday. We wish you all a wonderful Easter weekend and invite you to attend that on the Saturday, the LaSalle Spring Fling event. The free event is taking place at the Event Center at LaSalle Landing on Saturday, April 19th, and that is from 12 to 4. It's a unique busker-style event for all ages, includes acrobats, beatboxing, magic, roaming entertainment, food trucks, vendors, and more. So don't miss out that fun that day. And finally, if you're around on Thursday of this week, April 10th, join us at Town Hall for the Parkinson Awareness Flag Raising Ceremony, which is being held at 11 a.m. We don't have any public meetings this evening, but we do have a presentation. So I want to welcome Dr. John Capucci for being here with us today. And on behalf of LaSalle Council, we would like to congratulate Dr. John Capucci in being awarded the King Charles III Coronation Medal. This national award is presented to Canadians who have made significant contributions to Canadian society. The medal is presented in the name of His Majesty King Charles III and administered by the Office of Secretary to the Governor-General at Rideau Hall. Dr. Capucci received the award for his dedicated work toward building bridges with various faith communities across our region, along with his many contributions to post-secondary education in Windsor. He organized countless free events, such as a talk with the late Murray Sinclair on Indigenous Christian relations, a panel on the importance of religious freedom, and a series for high school students on the Underground Railroad, and an interfaith prayer day for peace that brought 8 religious traditions together. So we just wanted to take the moment and invite Dr. Capucci to join us at Town Hall so we could also congratulate him. So congratulations, Dr. Capucci, if you could come up. Okay, we will move into our staff reports. And item 1 is the 2026 municipal election voting method selection. And I will turn it over to our Director of Council Services.
Good evening, Mayor, members of Council. As you are aware, the 2026 municipal election is quickly approaching. We're about a year and a half out, and Council Services wants to start preparing. We found in 2022, we had started preparing quite early, and we found the election went really smoothly. So we're looking to do a bit of the same this time. So I'm hoping Council will select a method of election so we can begin those preparations. As you are aware, we've run an electronic election, both telephone and internet voting, for the past 2 elections, so in 2018 and 2022. So we are proposing, I'll say the same type of election, an electronic election, but we're proposing only an internet election this year. And that is largely due to the fact that the telephone voting is declining. We saw about a 7.5% decline in the number of electors that chose to vote via telephone between 2018 and 2022. And we receive a number of complaints about that method of election. It's overwhelming, it's cumbersome, it's difficult to navigate. Those are just some of the few complaints that we received. So we are proposing to go just with an internet election this year. All the features that we've had in previous elections, such as a voting help center and advanced voting, will remain the same. The only difference is the telephone voting. However, if Council wishes for us to utilize telephone voting again and give that option to the electors, we're more than happy to do so. The cost really isn't, to add telephone voting back into the system is really negligible. So subject to any questions, we are proposing to go with internet voting for the 2026 municipal election.
Thank you very much. Members of Council, Councillor Carrick and then Councillor Riches-Bagnola.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, not really in favor of bringing back the phone. My mother tried it and it didn't work. It was very frustrating trying to remember all the options that you need to use for a phone. I think electronic voting, I can support that. We've done it the last 2 elections. I think it works, but I would like to just suggest that we look at maybe opening up some spots, like before the actual election day, like say the Volmer or the event center. We set up maybe a weekend or a day here and there so they can move around the town so they actually feel like they're going to a poll. And then we'd have assistants there so they could actually vote online. I think that would be spread out a little bit amongst town. I think that would be very beneficial. And I would be willing to support something like that if we could add to it. That's how I feel. Thanks.
That's certainly possible. We can add these, we can open up a voting help center at different municipal facilities. If we do decide to open up a voting help center, that's how I'll refer to it, at facilities not owned by the town, that would come at an additional cost, not a big deal. But yeah, we can certainly look at opening up voting, you know, for days or hours or, you know, weekends or whatever it might be, at different facilities in the town, so residents who may be closer, who reside closer to those facilities can attend at those places.
Councillor Regis Spignola.
Thank you, through you. So I share the same thoughts as my colleague. I do believe the phone voting was not successful. We heard a lot of complaints with that, so I'm happy that we're not looking at bringing that back. If there's a way to do the advanced polling stations, as well as, like Councillor Carrick said, having some assistance. There are people in the community, elderly, people who don't use the internet, people who don't have access to the internet, that may require assistance. And I know that that would be something that we should be offering, just for inclusivity. So those are my thoughts on this, for sure. Thank you.
Councillor Reno, and then Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Your Worship. I echo the phone concerns. The phone ballots, the very first time we did them, I got complaints on the campaign trail as people tried to use it. Some feel that they don't even know who they voted for that time because it just was so hard to deal with. I am a big fan of the online voting because it's convenient and it's accessible. It doesn't matter if you're in a wheelchair, it doesn't matter where you live, you can vote. And even if you want to come to what you would call a poll, if you wanted to come to town hall, the fact that we have people that can help you and guide you through the process, I think it hits all the bases. Everyone has an opportunity to vote. I know, you know, in one of the last elections, I was out of town, and I didn't take advantage of my chance to vote at an advance poll, and I lost out. And that doesn't happen in LaSalle because I can vote at 3 o'clock in the morning while I'm making a snack. So I think it's a great way to go. I have only one question of the clerk, is that there were some people asking me if we could bring back any type of paper ballot. And I'm just wondering, there must be a cost involved in something like that. What kind of cost would be involved with adding a paper option to this system?
So a paper option, I mean, it really depends on the extent to which you offer paper balloting. But when I did look at the paper ballot option, it could run anywhere from, you know, adding about $30,000 or $40,000 to the election to doubling the cost of the election. The resources required for paper balloting, I mean, we're not equipped to staff the election with internal staff, so we would have to hire externally and bring in election, I won't say volunteers, but election help, which is a significant cost. And then renting different facilities so that people can go to a proper polling station, and renting tabulators, and then the costs associated with, and not even financial costs, but the costs associated with staff time in recruiting and training and doing all that. So there is a significant cost. I mean, it could run us upwards of $150,000 to $200,000 just to run paper ballot in conjunction with an internet voting election.
Okay. I appreciate that answer. Thank you very much.
Councillor Burns.
Yes. Democracy's not free, and we shouldn't chintz on the options we give our constituents to vote. I know in the first election, one of the phone problems was 16 digits. You say, how do you know that? Because I counted every one of those digits, and I voted that way. But it was easier for me. But somebody who was maybe a little less eyesight or understanding of the system, they hit 1-800, hit the number, entered about the third time their number, and got frustrated. That was the end of that. Some people wanted to vote for me, and they told me that, but I think I was third on the list or whatever. He said, I voted for 2, and somehow they hit number at the end. It closed out their ballot, and they couldn't vote. And that was the issues with the first time. I think the second time, the way we had it, I believe we had an advance poll here, and on election day, we had open in the town hall for anybody who needed help. And that seemed to me worked very well, and I would be in favor of that. Because I also remember people in their 90s telling me out by Heritage Church, I voted for the last 50 years or so at Heritage Church or the town hall, and if I can't go there and vote with a piece of paper, then I'm not voting. And, you know, we just went through one election with a ballot. We're going to go through another one very shortly with a ballot. So the seniors are used to a ballot. And again, it's already been mentioned about literacy on computers. I'm not the most literate with it, but I managed to get by. So I think we need to remember that we need to give our residents as many options as they can to vote, because, as I said, democracy is what it should be. And when we leave out even 5% of the people who are not comfortable with the new technology, that's not really fair to them or to the taxpayers we represent. So whichever option, I can certainly deal with an internet option, but I would also like that they have the ability to come into one, or if it's all at the town hall, that's fine. It's up to us to get them out there, or their relatives to get them there, but at least they can come in, and however we did it last year worked very well. And I think on the last day, we may have got 3,600 votes or over 3,000 here. It was jammed, and that held up the results. So it shows that there's a number of people who want and deserve that option. So I can leave that with administration, but I would vote for that type of an option. Thank you.
So just so I'm clear, I didn't run the 2018 election, so I can't really speak to that. I do understand we had a voting help center for our electors. In 2022, we had the voting help center again, and individuals, regardless of whether they needed assistance or not, could always come here. Once the polls opened, and voting was permitted, we opened a voter help center here. We offered extended hours on the weekend, which did not garner very much traffic. I think we saw maybe less than 150 people, and we had offered extended hours during the weeks. We'd offered a couple of days on the weekend, I believe. Linda's shaking her head. She's a little bit more clear on that. And it didn't garner that much traffic. But we always do offer an option here while voting is open for individuals. What I have heard a little bit from Councillor Carrick is maybe explore offering these help centers at a different location to give individuals who are closer to those locations an opportunity to vote. And that will definitely be something that we explore and consider. But rest assured, you know, if we're going with this method of election, there will always be, until polls close, there will be an option for individuals to come here and cast their ballot.
Thank you for your response.
First, I'll go to Deputy Mayor Capata and then Councillor Renaud.
Just quickly, Your Worship, thank you. My pop's 85 years old. He came here and voted. So when this came up, I asked him, I said, did you have any problems? And he said, yes. But he said, some very nice people helped me, and I voted for you. I said, well, thanks, Dad. I appreciate that. And then I said to him, I wasn't on the ballot. And then I kind of laughed. So we had a little bit of a chuckle. But he came here. He walked through what staff had set up. He was very satisfied with it. He had no problem with it. And like I said, from the sandwich generation that we find ourselves in, when you can ask a person who's 80 plus, who's never had the internet all the time, how did they do it? Let me tell you, he was here, he appreciated it, and I appreciate it as well. So I appreciate the clerk's comments and the comments of my colleagues as well, to make sure that we have a safe, democratic, and accessible election in the town of LaSalle.
Just one last comment. I would like to thank everyone in the clerk's department, because for the last couple of elections, I learned that they actually go to the nursing homes and they assist in the nursing homes for those that cannot get out, and that just makes it even more accessible. And I do know that your service there is very much appreciated, and actually a lot of the members of the old age homes and the retirement homes really appreciate it, and that really brings a normalcy to their day when they get to vote
And I just wanted to thank you for that continuing work that you guys do.
Thank you. I don't really have any questions. My comments are simply that I know when people hear internet voting, they assume that we're restricting. And it's actually quite opposite, because we have things set up here at Town Hall. It's still like they can come and vote in person. And so whether you're comfortable on the computer or not, we're going to make sure that you get the opportunity to vote. I know the big question here tonight was really around the telephone voting aspect of it, which is slowly declining over the elections. And at the end of the day, we just need to decide whether we're continuing with that or not. It does represent 5% of the voter turnout from the last election. So as the clerk has said, there really isn't an addition as far as cost goes to continue to offer that. It's just that we are all aware from what we've heard from residents that there were a lot of people who did struggle using it. And even though they voted, there's some people who aren't sure if they voted for who they intended because they found it so hard to work through. So I agree with everything that's been said. I think we've done a great job at making sure that we are accessible to everyone. I love the idea of being able to have it at maybe one or two other locations depending, and I guess that's something that you could work through and kind of provide some options. But I think the big question is tonight is the telephone voting. And so I will leave it to council for what recommendation they'd like to move forward with this evening. Anyone? Councillor Carrick?
Go ahead. Age before beauty. Beauty was a horse. The bottom line is, I think we should get rid of the telephone one and go as long as we have these other opportunities in our community that people can go out to. And we'll leave that to administration to bring it back as a further report. And that's the recommendation that I would make.
I support the senior statesman.
So it's moved by Councillor Burns, support by Councillor Carrick. Any other questions or comments? All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Oh, Lord. Item 2, short-term rental update. Our Director of Planning and Development, Ms. Beggs.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So as council will recall, some time ago, we came with a report that highlighted the inventory at that time with particular short-term rentals, or STRs as they're referred to. And what we had decided at that meeting was that there really wasn't enough of a critical mass of STRs to be able to support the implementation and development of a regulatory framework for a program of this magnitude. So at that time, it was kind of put on hold. And at that same meeting, council had requested that we come back in a year or so's time to provide a more comprehensive update on where we are at with STRs in the community, and if that particular recommendation has changed, and if council does want administration to perhaps explore the development of a program. And so this report tonight deals with just that. It's twofold. It provides a bit of an update to council on where we're at in terms of our existing short-term rental inventory, and it also seeks some direction from council as to whether or not they feel administration should move forward with a regulatory program and framework, and retain a consultant to be able to help put that together for us. So just in terms of highlighting the existing inventory, in 2023 we noted roughly 23 STRs in the community, and we've seen only an increase of 24 since that time, and relatively few complaints. In our collaboration with police and by law enforcement, we aren't hearing a lot of complaints with respect to STRs. So that puts our cumulative STR total at 47. We did do some work with TWEPI to find out what their numbers were at, because they're collecting data on STRs as well. TWEPI noted a few more STRs than we were able to capture. And we drilled down on that a little bit with them, and it's because they had access to other data sets that we did not have. So their existing inventory in LaSalle was a little bit higher than what we were able to document. Not substantially higher, but their total tally was at about 57 existing known STRs, whereas ours was at 47. So there are many proven benefits to the development of a regulatory framework, and we're seeking some direction tonight from council as to, if we want to move towards developing this program. There are, a whole host of benefits to adopting it. They're outlined in the report. Preserving the existing housing supply is one of them. Ensuring compliance and safety, in terms of regulating the building code and fire code, because people are actually living in these facilities, even if it's only for the short term. So there's some, health and safety standards and regulations that we should look at. There's also an opportunity with the development of a program to collect a municipal accommodation tax, if that's something council is interested in. Ultimately, the development of a program would likely require licensing, so there's an opportunity to collect some fees with respect to a licensing program. And then should we have a proper program in place, we would also develop a comprehensive bylaw that could be enforced, and we would regulate known STRs in the community that did have a license. Conversely, it's also important to acknowledge that there perhaps could be some challenges with the development of a program. Sometimes enforcement is difficult. We're only able to regulate the known licenses that we have, so enforcement can be difficult. And there's also the concept of having to add to our existing staff complement to be able to continue on with the development and a program such as this, whether it be on the licensing side in council services or in the bylaw enforcement side in planning and development. So the scope of an STR project contract, would do a number of things for us. It would start with issue identification, which we would seek public consultation on to get an understanding of what exactly the issues are in the community from an STR perspective. What is the problem that we are trying to solve? So it would likely start with that. We would do research and identification, obviously, of the existing inventory to confirm that our numbers are accurate and up to date. Look at regulatory best practices around the jurisdiction and otherwise. And then we would also provide options for policy improvement, whether it would be through the official plan, so making sure that we contemplate short-term rentals in our OP, and perhaps making some amendments to our zoning bylaw to allow for them. Likely a licensing program and protocol for implementation, which would involve council services, municipal accommodation tax opportunities, bylaw enforcement action and initiatives, and lastly, it would likely explore the staffing additions that would be necessary to support a program of this magnitude. So we're really looking for some council direction on whether or not there's council interest to pursue this regulatory framework. It wasn't identified as a departmental goal for 2025. But should that be council's preference, we can certainly carve out some time and space for it. It might mean that other things just take a little bit longer. So with that, I am available for questions.
Thank you. We do have someone here to speak. Mr. Peterson, if you'd like to come forward.
Thank you. Just to start off, I'd like to thank Gudrun and Peter, and in particular Roxanne, your bylaw officer, who's just been wonderfully helpful throughout the past few months. Mayor Melange, members of council, administration, Town of LaSalle. We've seen the commercial. Faced with a young person moving out of the family home to go to college or university, a couple converts a bedroom into short-term rental unit to make a modest amount of money from occasionally renting it out. This is not what we're talking about. Last year, the single-family home next to us on Oak Ridge was converted into 3 short-term rental units, hosted by a company that, according to one short-term rental website, offers 13 rentals in LaSalle and Windsor. No one sees guests when they arrive or leave. It's all electronic. No one's on site in case of emergency or disturbances. It's not run as a hotel, even though it is a distributed hotel. In 2024, the number of short-term rental units in the province of Ontario doubled from the previous year. Monthly revenue from short-term rentals in Ontario last year, 2024, averaged $258 million, $3 billion. It's a big business. The market in Ontario is dominated by commercial operators. In the first quarter of 2025, almost half of short-term rentals are multi-listings, operated by hosts with more than one listing. In 2023, the top 10% of hosts earned 44% of all revenue. The top 1% of hosts earned more than 15% of total revenue. It's a big business. It needs to be regulated, licensed, monitored, and controlled. It removes permanent and long-term rental housing from our community. It operates free of business taxes and lodging regulation. When we've gone to a motel or a hotel, they ask for photo identification. They're required by law to keep a record of who's staying in the lodging. Not so with short-term rentals. It disrupts local neighborhoods and disturbs residences. I fully agree with your administration's recommendation to develop a local regulatory framework for short-term rentals. I would like to emphasize the need to expedite the process. In 2018, the Ontario Ministry of Finance produced a guide to assist municipalities with the local regulation of what they called home sharing. Over 60 municipalities in the province of Ontario have since developed and implemented bylaws, licensing, and monitoring processes for short-term rental units in their communities. According to the 2024 report by the Canadian Bar Association, wherever legal challenges have been raised concerning the right to regulate and control, or in some cases completely ban short-term rentals, municipalities have prevailed. Having spent over 30 years developing policies, regulations, and legislation, I would like to suggest that the town of LaSalle perhaps does not need to hire an outside consultant to work on this file. There are two questions that our local political leaders need to answer. One, should a residential property owner have the right to rent out a portion of their principal residence for the purpose of a short-term rental, like the commercial? Two, should a business and/or owner have the right to convert a property that is not their principal residence into short-term rental units? If the answer to both questions is yes, you don't need any further regulation. If the answer to either or both questions is no, that informs the development of a bylaw, licensing, and enforcement framework. With the resources and lived experience of more than 60 communities in Ontario and many more beyond, you have the tools to develop the necessary regulations and procedures. You take your draft bylaw and implementation plan to 1 or 2 public meetings where interested members of the community and stakeholders are invited to provide their feedback. While action in 2022, when this issue was first raised to Council's attention by your administration, might have prevented the establishment of the distributed hotel operating next door to our home in Oak Ridge, your action now to expedite the process to regulate these commercial short-term operators in our community would protect residents from inevitable safety and quality of life issues that accompany this type of enterprise. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members of council, do you have questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Capata?
Thank you, Worship, through you. To Gudrun, whenever I hear the word consultant, places I've worked, I start to go down long and dark paths. Is it possible that we could simply reach out to the 7 other member municipalities within Essex County to see what they're doing? I understand that at least one of our neighbor municipalities may, and keep me honest here, Your Worship, may be working on one of these bylaws, and that I just looked up what the gentleman referred. It gives us a framework to start. I just don't want to impede, as the gentleman said, the way the commercial would be, as opposed to the reality of living next door to Animal House. So just looking for your ideas on what may be going on within the county that you're aware of, so that we could connect if that's possible.
I'm going to answer part of that, only just from experience with TWEPI and what we've been working on. Kingsville has just adopted a short-term rental policy. Tecumseh is looking at banning short-term rentals. Lakeshore banned short-term rentals, but have some that have been grandfathered, but there's a whole lot of other stuff going on. And there's other municipalities who are going to start looking at it, but haven't gone down this road yet. And so, as much as I completely understand what our delegate is saying this evening, over the past 6 to 8 months, I have researched a ridiculous amount of these bylaws, and I will tell you, every single one is different. They are very different in nature as far as what they allow, what they don't allow. We have, like I said, Tecumseh, who I understand what they're looking at, which is there's a housing shortage, so they want to ban them so that that doesn't take that inventory off the market. Then there's other municipalities who have a rule in place that says the homeowner must live in the house and can have an STR in the basement. And then there's the other ones that allow STRs in general, and then a ton of other things. They can actually be very complicated. And so, as much as I don't love the idea of a consultant, because I agree with you, it can be a long process and it could be an expensive process. From what I've seen, and if we want to make sure we make the best decision for LaSalle moving forward, and I say moving forward, realizing yes, we have about 40-something already established, but compared to our neighbors, that's very minimal. Now is the time for us to do this, to make sure we get in before a lot more appear. But I don't think our administration has the time to put in to create what we need to make sure that we have a really thorough bylaw that allows us to license and protect our residents. And that's the biggest part, is we're trying to protect the residents who are currently here. In my thoughts, I don't know if administration wants to add anything to that.
No, I think that was very well said. I think every bylaw in every municipality is specific to the exact municipal issue that it's trying to solve, right? So every municipality has their own unique set of circumstances. And I think part of the rationale behind the public consultation component is to find out from our community, what are the issues that we're trying to guard against? And so that's one of the objectives, that when we go out and we talk to the public and we talk to folks like Mr. Peterson, what are you experiencing, and what can we put in place to help solve, what you're going through? So I think through public consultation, we'll be able to identify some of those concerns. The consultant request is being made because we are very busy, and we do have a lot of different objectives in our 2025 work program. So the consultant is merely there to help us along because we need the support and the development of that advice to be able to facilitate a program like this.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. Thank you for your insight and what's going on in the municipalities. Like I said, as an Army guy, R&D usually stands for rip off and duplicate. But if it's municipality specific, as Her Worship has said, then I don't object. And the gentleman's comments are well placed. Nobody would want to wonder what's going to happen to the house next door Friday, Saturday, Sunday of every weekend or of every nice day in the summertime. So I'm more than supportive of, as Her Worship has described, doing it the first time and doing it right. And if it means a consultant, well then so be it. But I want to make sure that folks who live in the community don't have to worry about what's happening on long weekends, and that they can enjoy what they've put into their space, so that the few dollars that I make renting out my space doesn't impede on you to enjoy your property. So if that's your insight, your worship, that I'm fully supportive of, as proposed, beginning the steps to expand and look into how we're going to go and to do it first time and to do it LaSalle right.
Councillor Renno?
Thank you. A couple things. First of all, in relation to the first presentation, we've found exactly what you found in your research, that in our small town, as much as the 24 units or 23 units last year didn't seem very substantial, it did double in 1 year. So that probably tells me that by next year, it will double again. And by the time we have a chance to look at this again, this could be out of control. With changing economic climates and mortgage rates and all kinds of things, I see this as having the potential to expand even more. On the other side of the coin, I go to Stratford for a play every year, and I utilize an Airbnb that does not have a resident in the home, and it's a lovely experience, but I realize that that's not every experience. And I had the opportunity, in relation to what the mayor said, to go to a conference that had nothing to do with Airbnbs last week. And I did receive a phone call, and I had some other discussions online in the last year that made me ask some questions of other municipalities. And one of our local municipalities, Essex, was there. And they explained to me that they did have some bylaws in place, but they treated one part of town differently than the other part of town. They had a moratorium on the waterfront because they didn't want any more down there, and it just sounded very confusing to me at that point. And another community near Caledon, they had, even though they didn't have very many, they regulated theirs for the respect. And what I can really understand is that when this first came to council a year ago, there was an online story going around how there was a lady that had found one of these agencies that she could rent her pool for the weekend. And people were coming in to have these big loud parties for 2 or 3 hours, and she was so happy she was making $100, and people were using her pool when her kids have grown and moved on. And I thought to myself, that's the last thing I want happening next to me. But weigh the checks and balances, and I absolutely believe that this is the right time. And I believe that not just because we have a lot of irons in the fire, but a consultant can bring a larger world view to this. They can say, listen, I've dealt with these 10 municipalities that have done this or that didn't do that, and they can give us some real options to keep control of what can be a really good thing. We don't have a hotel in LaSalle. I have family that comes to visit me that are too big for my house now to come and visit me. So I think there's a real place in this world for them, but to have them regulated, to have some rules, I would like to see what those options look like. So I support also moving to find a consultant that can give us some ideas. Thank you.
Councillor Burns?
I've been going to Grey Cup for 50 years, and we always had hotel rooms. Now, when I was in Hamilton, I took my whole family. We rented an Airbnb. So I had my niece call in to rent one particular place, and I can tell you how smart they are. She gave her name, and all you do is exactly like you said. You just get on the computer, you give them your name, come back. We were not allowed to rent that place in Burlington because they found out she was 21. So there's no secret about what A and B. It shocked me anyways. So then when I came home, I ended up with my daughter who's 48, and we rented another one with no problems. So they do know whether it's a young person going in there, but in Burlington, they have rules and regulations of what you can do and what you can't do. I believe in Hamilton now you have to live in the Airbnb. You just can't rent the whole house out. We rented the house out, 11 of us, that we didn't cause any disturbance in the neighborhood, made sure we parked their cars and did what we had to do, but there's always the other ones. I did notice that upstairs and downstairs, smoke alarm systems and that kind of situation was there. So I'm afraid of A, the disturbance in your neighborhood, but B, most important to me is the obligation and the liability of the municipality. If they're not up to code, and we have a lawyer here, I know who's getting sued. I don't care if it's ABC company out of Toronto, will be sued as a municipality. So they need to be inspected. We can take a short route and say, yeah, we'll just do A, B, and C, and we leave out D, we're still gonna be responsible. So I think, with what we have in development and with our staff, we should put it out to a consultant. It'll come back quicker. And again, whatever we decide here tonight, I would like to see that on a short change rather than a longer change. There's got to be enough of these Airbnbs and what they do and what they don't do already set up, and I concur with that. So we're not rewriting the world here, or we're not going to be the first one to do it. So I would support that we have the consultant can be the resource to make sure that, in public input, that we cover all bases and we do it, as we've always done in LaSalle. We try to do it the proper way the first time and alleviate your problem and probably other problems in here. And I would suggest that this number is a lot more than that, because I know people who have university students living in the basement of their house, and they drive a car back and forth because they can't find anywhere else to go, and it's a supplementary income. So they're there for 9 months, not just a weekend. So I would support the consultant's report, and hopefully we can bring the pain you feel to fruition and get rid of it sooner than later. Thank you.
Would you be able to clarify the short change, long change comment? Because administration wasn't sure what that meant.
We've been 2 years at this now. We've waited 8 months for this report, I think, roughly. I could be wrong, maybe
No.
6.
Just to clarify, the last meeting, we said to revisit us, I think it was in a year or so. We didn't ask for
Yeah.
anything further at that time
Yeah.
because we didn't need them. But
Yeah.
yes, this is a new report from there, but
Yeah.
we had given them a year to come back with it.
Yeah, but I think we need to have a shorter period of time than that. I mean, the problem's not going away. It's like watching a drunk driver drive down your street every day, and we do nothing about it. And for me, it's the liability. What liability do we bear knowing that this is going on, and it's been in a public meeting? They will take this YouTube thing and use it against us. So maybe administration can tell us what their timeframes are, so we all leave with the same idea of where we're going and how long it's going to take. Maybe that's the question I should pose, versus long-term and short-term. If that could be answered with some fairly consistency, then we'll all know what's happening.
I will
Thank you.
turn it over to administration, but I'm not sure that's an answer until we reach out to a consultant to see what their time frame is. But they may have a different answer for me if they've already talked to someone.
Bingo. I think, yeah, I can appreciate your concern. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said hiring a consultant will get us to the end product faster than if we were to be doing it internally ourselves. So I think if council is looking for this project to be prioritized and for a resolution to be in the short term, I think the right thing to do is to hire a consultant to help us with it. But without having the benefit of having, spoken to consultants myself, I'm not entirely sure as to what the time frame would be. I don't anticipate the work program to be significant. From the discussion that you've had, there's a lot out there already. So it is a little bit of R&D, but like Deputy Mayor Pat has suggested, it's R&D right-sized to LaSalle. So I think that I can already in my head, know what it's going to look like schematically. It's just getting that consultant on board to help us flesh it out. So I'm hopeful that it isn't going to take long, but I'm not comfortable providing certain timeframes.
I think you understand our concerns, and we can move forward with that, but I'm prepared to make a motion now unless no one else wants to speak.
I do have others who want to speak still.
Okay, go ahead.
Councillor Carrick?
Absolutely concur. I think definitely it's very irritating when you have bad neighbors, and especially if it's compounded by the influx of Airbnb or Airbnbs, and like I said, maybe 3 potential different living spaces. So it certainly does compound the issues, but I think the appropriate direction here is to do the consultant and go that way for us, because there's going to be, whether we stop it or we don't stop it, we make it legal or illegal, they're still going to happen illegally. So at least this way here would be nice to have some direction and some things in place, and what Gudrun had laid out all the way through. I support all that. Taxes, fire codes, I mean, it has to meet all the initiatives and the policies and the protectionisms we want. And I think we can get that. And I think, again, as everybody else up here has said pretty much the same thing, the sooner the better, and hiring the consultant, if that gets us there quicker, I'm good with that too, to help alleviate some of the pressures on all the neighbors. And again, the economy isn't good. It's probably going to get a little worse. So there will be a lot more people maybe venturing in this area. So it'd be good for us to at least have it regulated to the best of our ability and have some resources to help fight it through taxes, through revenues, whatever that may be, through our administration. So definitely support this. Thank you.
Councillor Richo-Spagnuolo?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm in full support to retaining a consultant. The only question I do have is, are we able to put stipulations when you're seeking a consultant with a timeline? Like to say we would like this done within 4 months, 6 months?
Yeah, we can certainly have those conversations. It's a function of their work program and prior commitments, but we can certainly try to expedite it to the extent that we can.
Any other questions or comments? My only question would be regarding the consultant's report. Would it also have recommendation on how to implement the licensing part of it? Would that be part of it, or that would be in-house?
We would look for some guidance on the development of a licensing program in collaboration with council services. I would likely consult with council services on making sure the scope of the contract is adequate and sufficient and robust enough to capture all of their concerns. And the consultant will likely also make recommendations relative to staffing enhancements necessary to ensure the success of the program.
Thank you very much. Councillor Burns?
Yeah, move the recommendation to hire a consultant and proceed.
Okay, moved by Councillor Burns, support by Councillor Richo-Spagnuolo. All in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you. Next is our consent agenda, and there are 2 items. Is there anything anyone wants to speak to, pull out, or we can just approve them together?
Yeah.
Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Carrick, support. Councillor Reno, all in favor? And that carries. And next item is our committee matters. We have just one item, which is the County Council highlights from March 19th, 2025. Are there any questions or comments on that? Councillor Burns?
Yes, I see the freshwater resolution put forth by the mayor and the deputy mayor. I want to thank you for that. So I will ask clarification on that. Should we be supporting this as a town and as recommended?
Thank you, Worship, through you. So how this came about, Councillor Burns, just for the backstory, is, as we're all aware, that when the gentleman who's now running the United States was campaigning, one of the things that he said is he talked about fresh water up here being, and that he could just turn on a tap and take as much as he wants. Well, we know that within the, speaking at the Tier 2 level, every single one of our municipalities in the County of Essex touches fresh water. And fresh water for us is not just potable drinking water, it's what we use everywhere. So the intent behind this was to make sure that the bilateral agreements that are in place to protect our water, our waterways, and our water-induced businesses and life are protected, and that we reach out to the entities that we have these agreements with in the United States as well as other places in Canada to make sure that we maintain the water levels, controls, and respect for clean water that we have in this area. So I guess to answer your question, sir, it would be nice for us to support it, because again, it affects all of us. If we go down to the riverfront, it affects where we get our drinking water, it affects where we play, it affects what we do. And the gentleman to the south of us is looking at us as a holder of things that he may want. And that, of course, would violate a lot of bilateral agreements that are already in place, have been in place for years. Thank you, Your Worship.
Then I would make a motion that we support this resolution from the county and move it forward.
So-
Or do we have to do that, or?
That was under the last item, the consent agenda.
Yeah.
So if I can get some guidance from the clerk, we need to go back to item I1,
Okay,
and that would be the item 1, separate them, and we would give different direction if
Okay.
or any other easier way to do this.
Yeah, we can just go back. I mean, we've received them, but if council wishes to support that resolution, we'll just go back and we can support it right now. That's fine.
Okay? So I have that moved by Councillor Burns, support by Councillor Reno. All in favor? And that carries. Yeah. Thank you. Next item is questions and statements by council members. There being none? We just did this one. Are you talking about Anne? That was Terry and Jeff. It was both. Okay. Is that okay? Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. No questions or statements. The only one I have is there's a new individual sitting around the table today, and I wanted to welcome Stephanie I knew I was going to say it wrong. Olewski. Stephanie Olewski has joined Team LaSalle, and I just wanted to welcome you to your first council meeting. So, welcome to LaSalle. There are any notices of motion this evening? None? Closed session. So we have a report out from March 25th, 2025, closed meeting of council. Council met in closed session and received information about collective bargaining negotiation. Council rose from closed session and adopted a motion to ratify the collective agreement between CUPE. Okay. Between CUPE and the town of LaSalle. So it's CUPE Local 701. Do you want these separate? Okay. The next one was a report out from April 3rd, 2025, our closed council meeting, which council met in closed session for the purpose of a development, information, education session. No further action was taken. And item 3, a report out from April 7th, 2025, closed meeting of council, was a special closed meeting, and council met in closed session for the purpose of conducting the CAO performance evaluation and provided direction to the CAO. Councilor Riccio Spagnolo, support. Councilor Reno, all in favor? And that carries. No bylaws. I know, I did the same thing. Confirmatory bylaw, that the confirmatory bylaw 25036 be given a first, second, and third reading and finally passed. Moved by Councilor Burns, support by Deputy Mayor Capata. All in favor? And that carries. Your schedule of meetings are listed below. Thank you for joining us this evening. Have a great night.